They crashed through the atmosphere like fallen stars, two alien warriors exiled from their galaxy. But Earth wasn't their prison. It was where they'd discover the one thing their world forbade them to feel: love. They didn't fall like debris. They screamed across the night sky, two streaks of white fire slicing through clouds above the Pacific. Somewhere beneath, fishermen gasped and pointed, whispering that angels were descending. They weren't entirely wrong. Liora hit first, carving a shallow crater into a field of wet grass. Her skin shimmered faintly under the moonlight, scales of soft silver fading with each breath. Beside her, Nyx landed with less grace, half in mud, half in disbelief. For the first time in their immortal lives, the two warriors were silent. The stars they once commanded now burned far, far above them. "Welcome to exile," Nyx muttered, shaking dirt from her hair. Liora didn't respond. Her gaze drifted to the horizon, endless blue alive. It smelled of salt, smoke, and rain. "It's noisy," she whispered. "Everything moves." They had been sentenced for defying the High Council of Vithar, a civilization that valued control above compassion. Their sin was simple: empathy. They had saved a doomed planet against orders, believing life, even primitive life, deserved a chance. Now their punishment was ironic. They'd been cast among those same primitive beings as they stumbled through the forest, trying to understand gravity and air pressure, like children learning to walk. Something unexpected happened. They laughed. It was small at first, a shared breath of disbelief, then louder, brighter. For the first time in centuries, they felt something close to joy. Maybe exile wasn't the end. Maybe it was. Freedom. Their laughter died when headlights swept across the trees. A jeep bounced over the dirt road, its engine loud and clumsy. Inside sat Ethan, a local astronomer and self-proclaimed cosmic janitor who chased meteor reports for fun. He'd seen the light fall from the sky and thought maybe, just maybe, he'd finally found proof he wasn't crazy when the beam of his flashlight caught two women in metallic bodysuits standing in a smoking crater. He froze. "Okay," he muttered, blinking. "Either I'm dreaming, or Comic-Con's gotten way too realistic." Nyx tilted her head. "He's smaller than expected." Liora frowned. "Do you think he's dangerous?" Ethan swallowed. "Only to myself, apparently." They stared at each other, predator and prey, yet neither certain which was which. Finally, Liora stepped forward, her voice steady but soft. "We require shelter." Ethan blinked. "Shelter, right, because the intergalactic Airbnb is fully booked tonight." Nyx scowled. "Is he mocking us?" "Yes," Liora sighed. "But he's kind of funny." That was how it began, not with romance or revelation, but with confusion, sarcasm, and a dead car battery. When Ethan offered his jacket and a place to rest, the aliens hesitated. On their world, kindness was currency. Here, it seemed freely given. They followed him. Inside his small, cluttered home by the coast, everything fascinated them: the hum of electricity, the warmth of tea, the framed pictures of people who looked happy just existing. Liora ran her fingers across a photograph of a child with a missing tooth. "They capture time," she whispered. "They freeze moments," Ethan smiled. "Yeah, we call them memories." That night, while Nyx poked suspiciously at a microwave, Liora sat near the window, watching the tide reflect the moon. For the first time since the fall, she felt something stir deep within her. Not fear, not duty, but curiosity. Why did this small, imperfect planet feel so alive? When Ethan joined her, handing over a cup of tea, she stared at the steam rising like fog. "We were punished," she said softly. "For caring too much?" He shrugged. "That's not a crime here. At least, not yet." She looked at him, really looked, and saw something no one on Vithar had: sincerity without expectation. The kind of emotion that didn't demand loyalty, only understanding. Outside, Nyx activated a small beacon from her wristband. A faint blue pulse vanished into the sky. She didn't tell Liora. Somewhere out there a signal had been sent, and something was listening. Morning came wrapped in fog. The ocean outside Ethan's window hummed softly, its rhythm blending with the quiet breath of strangers who were no longer strangers at all. Leora sat at the kitchen table, studying the way sunlight spilled across her hands. On Vithar, the light was synthetic, engineered, predictable. Here, it felt alive. Ethan placed a mug in front of her. "Coffee," he said. "Liquid courage for humans. Bitter but honest." She took a sip, winced, and laughed. "Honest, yes. Courageous, questionable," he smiled. "You'll fit right in." Across the room, Nyx was less amused. Her attention flicked from the cracked window to the blinking tracker hidden under her wristband. The signal she'd sent last night was answered, faint but real. Someone from their world had received it. That should have brought relief. Instead, it brought dread. If the Council found them, exile would be mercy compared to what came next. When Ethan stepped outside to start his truck, Leora noticed Nyx's distant stare. "You called them," she said quietly. Nyx didn't deny it. "We don't belong here." "You know what happens when Vithar's soldiers disobey orders." Leora's voice softened. "I also know what happens when we forget why we disobeyed them." Nyx didn't answer. The silence between them was heavy. Not anger, but the weight of two souls standing at the edge of two worlds. That evening, Ethan took them into town. He wanted to introduce them to humanity, though neither of the women understood why the concept of mall food seemed sacred to him. The air was filled with sound. Laughter, car horns, someone playing guitar near a food truck. People moved like currents in a river, messy but beautiful. Nyx folded her arms, muttering, "These humans spend energy to gather in crowds, only to avoid eye contact." Leora smiled faintly. "Maybe that's their way of feeling less alone." Ethan handed them ice cream cones. "Rule number 1 of Earth," he said. "You can't hate something until you've tried it." Nyx sniffed hers suspiciously. "It's cold." "That's kind of the point," Ethan grinned. Leora took a cautious lick, then froze. It's like lightning and sugar had a baby." Ethan burst out laughing. "Exactly." For a moment they were just 3 people sharing a stupid, perfect human experience. The galaxy could have ended right there, and none of them would have noticed. But peace never lasts. Later that night, a storm rolled over the coast. Leora stood at the window again, watching the sky flicker with electric veins. Something felt wrong, a pulse beneath the thunder, rhythmic, artificial. She knew that sound. So did Nyx. "They found us," Nyx whispered. A ship, cloaked in light distortion, descended silently through the storm clouds. The Council's retrieval team. They'd come not to forgive, but to erase. Ethan ran into the room, startled by the shaking ground. "What the hell is that?" Leora grabbed his arm. "You have to leave." "Not without you," he said. Nyx activated her armor, faint blue lines tracing her silhouette. "You can't fight them, Ethan. They'll kill you before you even understand what you saw." He looked at her, fear in his eyes, but something stronger behind it. Resolve. "Maybe, but I've spent my life looking up, wondering if someone was out there. Now I know. I can't just walk away." The house shook again as a beam of light cut through the clouds. Leora turned to Nyx, heart pounding. "We can't go back. You know what they'll do to us." Nyx hesitated. For the first time, the unshakable warrior looked afraid. Then she looked at Ethan, human, fragile, ridiculous, and something in her broke. "Fine. Then we run." They burst into the rain-soaked night. The ship's scanners swept across the coastline, slicing the darkness with white beams. Lightning cracked as they dove into the forest, mud splashing beneath their feet. Ethan stumbled, but Leora caught him, her hand glowing faintly as she helped him breathe. "You're healing me," he gasped. "Borrowing time," she said. "Don't waste it." Behind them, Nyx raised her arm, firing a pulse of light toward the ship. The blast tore through the rain, shorting the scanners for just a moment, enough for them to vanish into the trees. By dawn, the ship was gone. So was the beacon. Only ashes and silence remained. Ethan sat beside the 2 aliens on a rocky cliff overlooking the sea. He looked at them, one bruised, one bleeding, both smiling faintly. "So do you still think humans are primitive?" Leora smiled. "Yes, but beautifully so." Nyx chuckled. "Hopeless. Completely hopeless." They all laughed, tired, soaked, but alive. The war above the stars could wait. For now, exile didn't feel like punishment anymore. It felt like home. The rain had stopped by morning, leaving the forest washed clean and glistening. Mist coiled between the trees like breath. For hours no one spoke. Every step was heavy with what had just happened. The escape, the storm, the impossible decision that waited on the horizon. They found shelter in an abandoned lighthouse near the coast. Its walls were chipped, its light long dead. But from the top, you could see forever, the ocean stretching into silver fog. Ethan lit a small fire using what he could find, old driftwood and a torn astronomy chart. The irony wasn't lost on him. "Guess this is what they mean by letting go of your past," he muttered. Nix sat near the window, eyes on the horizon. "You shouldn't have stayed with us," she said. "They'll come again. They never stop." Ethan looked at her. "Yeah, well, neither do I. Besides, I'm invested now. You two crash-landed in my field. That's kind of personal." Leora smiled faintly. "Humans find loyalty in the strangest ways." Ethan shrugged. "Maybe, but sometimes strange is what saves us." The three of them fell into a quiet rhythm, sharing stories and fragments. Nick spoke of the Vitharian citadels that floated above oceans of glass, where silence was law and laughter was forbidden. Leora told them how the stars used to hum when she flew through nebulous storms. And Ethan told them about Earth's small wonders, thunderstorms, pancakes, and the way humans sing even when they're sad. By nightfall, something shifted between them. The tension that had once been fear turned into something softer, warmer, a fragile trust. When Ethan stepped out to collect more firewood, Nix turned to Leora. "You're getting attached," she said quietly. Leora met her gaze. "So are you." "I'm being realistic," Nix countered. "He's mortal, fragile. His entire species is a heartbeat compared to ours." "And yet," Leora whispered, "his heart feels stronger than anything we've ever known." Nix looked away, jaw tight. "You think love will save us? It never does. It's what got us exiled." Leora's voice softened. "Maybe it's what will set us free." Before Nix could respond, the lighthouse began to hum. A low vibration rolled through the floor, followed by a flash of blue light from the cliffs below. Leora's breath caught. "They've found us again." Outside, the air shimmered. A portal unfolded above the water, swirling energy like liquid glass. From it descended three figures in armor of white fire, Vitharian enforcers. Their voices carried on the wind, cold and perfect. "Leora, Nix, your exile is over. Surrender peacefully and return to judgment." Ethan stepped forward instinctively. "They're not going anywhere." One of the enforcers turned its glowing visor toward him. "This being is irrelevant." Nix moved before the sentence ended. A burst of energy shot from her palm, throwing the nearest soldier back. The air crackled. "Irrelevant?" she shouted. "He saved us!" The battle that followed was chaos. Flashes of light, thunderous impacts, the smell of ozone and salt. Ethan dove behind a rock, shouting directions like it was second nature. Leora fought beside Nix, but every strike drained her faster. She wasn't made for destruction. She was made for mercy. One of the enforcers broke through, knocking her to the ground. A blade of plasma rose above her chest, and then stopped. The soldier hesitated. Under the helmet, a voice she recognized whispered, "Sister." Leora's eyes widened. "Eris?" The enforcer removed his helmet, and there he was. Her brother, the one she thought had vanished during the rebellion. His face was weary, conflicted. "You were supposed to come home," he said. "Not die here. This is home now," she whispered. "You just can't see it." Eris looked at Ethan, who stood behind her, bruised but unyielding. "You risk everything for them?" Leora nodded. "Because they taught me what we forgot. How to live, not just exist." For a heartbeat, the world held its breath. Then Aris lowered his blade. "Go, before the others realize." Nix blinked. "You'd betray your command." He smiled sadly. "Maybe it's time someone did." He turned, firing a blast into the air, signaling a false hit. The portal began to collapse. Leora grabbed his arm. "Come with us." Aris shook his head. "Someone has to stay behind to make them believe you're gone." And before she could speak again, he was gone, swallowed by light. When the portal vanished, the night fell silent once more. The three of them stood by the shore, exhausted, shaking, but alive. Ethan placed a hand on Leora's shoulder. "You okay?" She nodded slowly, eyes wet. "No," she whispered. "But I will be." Nix looked at the horizon. "So what now?" Leora smiled faintly. "Now, we start over, on a world that never asked for us, but somehow feels like it's been waiting." The sun began to rise, painting the ocean gold. For the first time since the exile, they didn't look up at the stars with longing. They looked forward, together,